How's it going, everyone? This video is going to be over the seek and destroy pattern, when I expect this pattern to occur, and how I search for entries within it. So what is a seek and destroy profile? A seek and destroy profile is a lack of higher time frame direction relative to the time frame you are watching, which leaves us with consolidation. So looking at this diagram here, you can see we have our sell side and buy side liquidity created from this price leg up. Now with a consolidation on the higher time frame, I'm expecting when price tries to leave this range to return back into the range. So you can see at these highs, after it sweeps buy side liquidity, it comes back into the range. And at the lows, when it sweeps sell side liquidity, it comes back into the range. This concept is fractal, so with this larger time frame seek and destroy profile, we can also have lower time frame seek and destroy profiles within that, as you can see here. So generally I like to stay away from this profile as it's pretty choppy. However, if I choose to trade it, there are a few things that I look for. The first thing I do is identify deviations from the range. So if we look on this chart here, where do we deviate from the range or take buy side or sell side liquidity? So now that I have my deviations marked out, these are the areas that I will be looking for a trade, and where am I generally targeting with these trades? So in terms of targets, there are three things that I look for. That is 1, equilibrium, 2, OTE, and then 3, the other side of the range, buy side or sell side liquidity. So let's go over those real quick. So looking at this diagram, we can see we have a deviation from the range right here, expecting a price to reach back into the range. What do we want to look for? The first one would be equilibrium. So looking at the equilibrium of the range, my first target would be right around here. Now for the second option, I will look for an OTE, and for that, I will use a fib. So my next target would be right in here. And then finally, we now have buy side liquidity right here, and that would be my third target. So looking at the rest of the examples in the diagram, you can see for this first deviation from the range, I'd be looking for the equilibrium right here, OTE, and then the sell stops resting below. This deviation from the range, I now look for an equilibrium of this price leg down, an OTE, and then the buy stops resting above here. For this one, I'd be looking for an equilibrium of this range, OTE, and then the sell stops resting below here. So what do I look for on a daily basis that may give me an indication that a seek and destroy pattern may occur throughout the day? I look for London session to take the high and the low of the Asian range. And what this does is it creates a deviation on both sides of the range. And what I can expect for the New York AM session is either consolidation or for London session low and high to be targeted. For this first example, I have the Asian range high and low marked out, and we are going to watch the price action as we go towards London and just after London. So as we go ahead here, you can see we leave Asia session low. Now we take Asian high, but do we come back into the range? We do. So this is our deviation from the range, our first one. Now we want to see, do we take our Asian session low? And we do. So we have two deviations from the range here. And what do we have with those deviations? We now have buy side and sell side liquidity. So as we come towards the New York session open, we would want to be watching these areas. So right there, we sweep sell side liquidity, we get a move back into the range, and if we do, where are we likely to be headed? For these high. So right there, we get a large displacement candle, we have an order block, so I'd be looking for a reaction here to look for that buy side liquidity, and we now have another deviation right here. So as we play this forward, you can see we go ahead and we take the other side of the range. So now we have another deviation from the range, However, with a super large displacement candle here, we may start to leave this range. And you can see how we start to go a little bit higher there. And one little tip is, if you understand the strat or have seen my broadening formation video, if we take these lows that were purged and we run them down, and these highs, what do we have right here? We have a broadening formation. In this next example, we will look at Asia session high and low, but we'll also look at just using it within a range. So if you look right here, we have sell side and buy side liquidity from this large range, which we are currently consolidating in. So our main focus will be looking at this high and this low, but also noticing how price reacts to the Asia high and low. So you can see we took the Asia high, come back into the range, but just consolidate, retest midnight open, and there we go and take our buy side liquidity. So this is our deviation from our current range. So looking at it, where would we want price to reach for? Well, we could see price reach for either equilibrium of this range, OTE of this range, or sell side liquidity. As price goes down, you can see we put in another low right next to our Asia low, which is just engineering sell side liquidity. We then take that low right into our OTE, and we get a reaction out of that back into a fair value gap. Go ahead and delete these so that it doesn't clutter. And now as we near our New York open, as stated in the previous diagram, we'll either get consolidation or a reach for either side of the range. If you notice here, this pattern or profile is being fractal. We can see how each time we take sell side or buy side, we are just coming back into the range. So as we let this play out further, you can see we take our sell side again, come back into the range. We finally go reach for this low, and if you notice, we put in quite a few highs up here, so I'd either want to see it reach back into an equilibrium, OTE, or ideally back into these highs. So looking at our deviation here, letting this play out, there's a move back to this high. Where do we go? Back to an equilibrium, or in this case, an OTE. Now where do we go from here? Well, we have more buy side liquidity. And this will be a great example of how you can use a broadening formation and price when in a seek and destroy profile will respect that fairly well. Cleaning this up and going to let it play out, what are the three things we're looking for from this deviation down here? Well, that is either a reach for an OTE from this high to this low in equilibrium, or reaching for this buy side liquidity. And so if you notice, we already hit our equilibrium right here. We've reached out into an OTE, and if we are going to expand, I'd want to see us reach up into there. And there we go. We reach for buy side liquidity. And if we fast forward ahead, when this price leg went up and took these highs, we put in a high. Where do we retrace to? Equilibrium before getting a move back up, reaching for OTE, getting another little retracement before finally going and taking out our sell side liquidity. I hope you found this video helpful and insightful, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. See ya.